Not only is the chairman of Ways and Means a little bit late, we were both late, sir. All three of us are late back to the opening of this thing. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Good morning. You got a man out there that is guarding that front door.
What?
Well,
did he get your temperature?
He got the temperature.
Was the temperature okay?
We had to sign forms, and he wanted all kind of information.
It's about like it is over at the Capitol, isn't it? Or is it worse? You got to get through the gates and everything else.
You do have to get through the gates at the Capitol. That's right, in more ways than one.
What time did you guys finish yesterday?
Yesterday was a long day, Paul.
Yeah.
The House finished before the Senate, so we the House was done midday or so, and the Senate went on well after 5. So, long day.
Today, you guys go in at what time? 10 o'clock this morning, I think.
10 o'clock this morning. That's right.
The Senate goes in at 9.
Yep.
Let's take the marijuana thing first of all, because that created a lot of problems yesterday as far as the marijuana, the smoke, in a heated debate.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of the smoke, lingered in the House and Senate yesterday from last-minute jostling over regulations for medical marijuana. Give us a play-by-play what happened.
Well, it's complicated. It's probably more complicated than the listeners really care to know. But the Senate sent us a bill, and the Senate's bill was very technical. It had basically a new program with had taxing authority and money spent and all those sorts of things in there. But it did have a trigger language in it that it did not go into effect until or unless the Initiative 65 was overturned by the Supreme Court. Well, in our committee, in Ways and Means, when that bill got to the House, Mr. Bomgar amended that bill in committee to basically track the exact language of 65. And so that's what was put in there as close as you can put a constitutional language into statutory form. And so that's what happened. But when we got to the floor, there was great angst over the bill, and I think people had heard from some folks back home, and Mr. Bomgar offered about 4 points of order on the bill, and people were getting restless, and so the bill was set aside. It was laid on the table, and we thought that was the end of the bill. So later in the day, we got wind that the Senate had amended a separate bill that had the relevant code sections in it in the Senate, to include the marijuana language that the Senate had passed earlier this year in a bill down there.
Which bill did they use to put that in there?
It was Harper's bill. I believe that's right. It was a CBD bill that was dealing with a program, a CBD program that was created years ago. And so it had the relevant code sections. They amended it. And the next thing everybody knows, marijuana is back alive and well.
But it's back in what form, though? It's back in the form of
the Senate form.
The Senate form.
The Senate amended the bill.
The changes that Bomgar made.
Yes,
they're gone. They're dead.
They're dead. That's right. That is correct. And so the Senate bill, I believe, I've been told, I haven't studied it yet, but it is the exact same bill that passed the Senate earlier this year.
What's going to happen when it comes back to the House?
Well, at that point in time, it's a different procedure. We're at a different procedural spot than we were yesterday on the Senate bill that we took up in the House. That bill that's in the Senate would come back. It's a House bill, so it would come back to the House for concurrence or non-concurrence or for possibly inviting conference.
Where's that going to go?
That's a good question. We'll find out in the next few days. The votes are there. That bill is actually not a Ways and Means bill. It's a Judd B. bill. That's Chairman Bain. And so
let's just say it passed.
Yeah. If it passed, if the House concurred, they'd go to the governor.
And the governor, has he commented on this?
Not to my knowledge.
If it does pass, it does mirror 65 in some ways.
The Senate language, to my knowledge, and I haven't studied it in detail because we put a different version in there. We put almost the exact language of 65 in the House version. But 65 does create a program. It taxed it at a reasonable amount, I think around 10%, somewhere in that range. And it also created programs for spending the money on education and other needs in the state.
Well, we understand the tax, but the tax does not go to the general revenue, though.
No. In the Senate plan, it actually went to specific education programs.
Either of these bills, would it go to general revenue, or is it going to stay like it is? In other words, nobody can use it.
If it depends on what the will of the House is. So if it comes back to the House and there's enough votes to concur.
Are you telling me that the will of the House, most of the members here, when you say the will, you're talking about the majority?
Sure.
And I noticed that you said yesterday, you said it's my opinion that this is the end of the road and you got some applause in the House chamber for that. The will of this body does not want to move this matter forward, and I'm going to respect that, which means that you didn't think there was any more fight for that particular bill.
It did not appear at the time that the body wanted to continue down that road.
Which means they want to go on and let Initiative 65 go on and work its course through the courts. And
that's right. But here's the danger for that, Paul. For the people who across the state who really genuinely do want a medical program, and I do believe a majority of the people that voted want a genuine medical program. If the Supreme Court were to strike that down, and it's a serious challenge that the city of Madison has made at the Supreme Court, and that's where it's at. I think oral arguments are set for April
14th, and I've heard a lot of people say that there is as much as you can find it on the other side, saying there's nothing to it. You'll find an equal number of people who say, "Wait a minute, there is justifiable reason to look at this. That the initiative process is flawed, and there's a lot there."
Well, Paul, you may know that my day job is a practicing attorney, and so I learned a long time ago you don't
second guess.
You don't try to predict what the courts may do. Again, I'm not a lawyer or a litigant in that case, but my understanding is it's a serious challenge.
And I know that I've talked to some people, and if it lives or dies, is it more complicated if it's passed? Simply because, regardless of what the court does, let's say the court says there's nothing to this, we're not going to take it up.
Okay.
Then you guys pass the bill. Then you got two competing marijuana places.
It depends on what passes. So I mean, that's right. But the Senate bill is different.
Well, if anything passes.
Well, no, because in the House version, it was 65's language. It was the exact same thing. It was just in statutory form. So it would be the exact same thing going forward.
Even to the point where the health department gets all the revenue and you can't spend it for anything else?
The version that was before the House yesterday, yes.
Well, why in the world put that in there? I don't understand that.
Well, there's somebody said someday you can't pass a Happy Birthday America bill if you don't have the votes. And so it's a matter of counting votes.
Well, I'm trying to figure this out, and I may be missing something here, but you know the people, the House members, or we know, I know a lot of the members and the people. I cannot believe these people in the House, if they had the opportunity to bring some of that money to their local municipalities without keeping it within the confines of the health department, wouldn't want to do that. You're telling me the will of the majority of the House members is to let the marijuana people keep all the money?
No, I don't. I do not believe that. What I believe is that there is serious misinformation that is out there at the public level, and that also exists at the Capitol amongst legislators.
In misinformation in what manner?
As far as what a statutory bill would do at this point in time, why the need for it? Is there a need for it? And so they feel like the people have spoken. And the people that are against it. Passing a statutory form, or have they? They're out there, they're tooting their whistles and running their mouth and all those sorts of things, that. and that's what people are hearing. But the reality is if the Supreme Court strikes down that change in our Constitution, then there will be no medical marijuana program in the state of Mississippi unless we act.
But not necessarily true. Simply because, number one, if you do pass something, it's not going to negate the constitutional. 65.
I said if the Supreme Court strikes it down.
I understand that. But even if they strike it down, you guys could the governor could call a special session and get it done in the manner that needs to be done.
He certainly could. Knowing the governor the way I know him, I don't know that he'd want to spend taxpayer dollars on a special session on marijuana. But
that's a different subject.
That's my opinion.
But you understand what I'm saying.
I do.
He could call a special session in April, the last of April, or the 1st of May.
He could.
And you guys could go in and pass that same bill.
He could. My opinion
with the revisions that you want.
My opinion is that's not likely, but we'll see.
All right.
I've been wrong before.
So right now, you've got how much before the deadline? The end of session?
We had an internal deadline of trying to be done by March 26th. Yeah. That's about 2 weeks and a day. So,
Fender wrote before the bill was killed. Representative Joel Bomgar, Republican from Madison, an ardent supporter and financial backer of Initiative 65, accused Lamar of running a ruse and said the bill was aimed at screwing over everybody who voted for Initiative 65. Bomgar in committee last week had successfully gutted the Senate bill with an amendment to substitute the language voters passed with Initiative 65. I understand also that there was it a request that Representative Jill Ford made as far as an ethics violation, or what was that?
Representative Ford did stand up and inquire about potential ethics violations yesterday on the House floor.
Was that targeted at Mr. Bomgar?
Well, she didn't mention a name, but pretty much everybody in the room knew what she was talking about.
If it's conflict of interest, would half the House and 3/4 of the Senate be gone, or?
I don't know. So how that works, thankfully we don't have to deal with it too often, Paul, but how that works is we have an ethics committee, and my understanding is that she filed a complaint before the ethics committee, and so the ethics committee has a procedure and investigation process that it will follow.
So the deadline is not till the end of the session on this one, is my understanding, as far as coming back and dealing with the revived. It wasn't dead. Yeah. It wasn't dead, so the revived bill.
That particular Senate bill did die, but it was revived in a separate House bill and survived yesterday's deadline so that it continues to have life.
When will you guys be taking that up, or is it will it be this week? Or?
Well, it could get held on a motion to reconsider today in the Senate. If not, it will go ahead and come to the House probably after today, and then so it could be next week.
Let's other things to talk about. The Wildlife Fund apparently has still got some life in it.
Thankfully, yes.
What do you think about it?
Well, my understanding is the Senate made substantial changes. Yeah. I'm a big proponent of that bill and a big proponent of the House version of that bill, quite frankly. But the broad concept is something that could do great things for the state of Mississippi and the world of conservation and outdoor activities, hunting and fishing, and just that's who we are as Mississippians, so many of us. And so that bill would help us leverage federal dollars to improve not only in the House version, not only public places, but also through organizations like Ducks Unlimited and Wildlife Mississippi and others, help us improve private lands as well.
Would you say that the form that came over to you guys is not acceptable?
That is my opinion. I believe that, to my understanding, and I haven't studied it, and the chairman down there, I know the lieutenant governor has been involved in that, but the chairman, Neil Whaley, is a good friend of mine, Senator Whaley, and he and I expect us to get together during the conference process and try to hammer out these differences. But my understanding is that the version that passed the Senate removed any private any monies going for improvements on private lands. And you have to remember, over 90% of the state is owned by private land. So if you really want to make a difference in the world of conservation, that needs to be in there, and that's exactly what organizations like Ducks Unlimited, Wildlife Mississippi, that's what they do. That's no different than the Farm Service offices, whether you're planting pine trees or doing other conservation easements, or whether you're getting riparian ditch bank CRP programs, all those sorts of things. We do that all the time, so it's not unusual.
For the people who don't know, the bill would, let me just give it, because we always get new people who are joining in. Mm-hmm. The bill from the House basically said they would divert some of the taxes, no increase on taxes, but everything coded as sporting goods in the state, and that's a wide range of purchases out there. Everything that you bought that's a sporting goods under that code, a part of that money, that 7% tax, would go to this wildlife trust fund, and they could take that money and match it with federal dollars and increase the maximum. That would be $10 million at one point, or $20 million.
It would be $15 million a year, but the fund itself would cap at 20. So the diversion would roll off if the fund set at 20. So it's designed to be reasonable and not be too much. But what other states have done, Paul, they've taken their state money and they have matched it with federal money, sometimes up to as much as 3 and 4 times. So you could turn $20 million into $80 million, and you're talking about really making
on a yearly basis.
Yes, sir. Making a big difference.
And
in the
then
state
there
of
would be a board that would decide where that goes to the areas needed, and that's all spelled out.
The board would accept applications, and those applications could come from both the public sector, meaning state agencies, our parks could get some help, as well as
bike
applications.
trails, archery places, everything like that.
Yep.
The Senate bill, what the lieutenant governor he says, well, we're not doing the diversion. We would like to just have the allocations per year where the state legislature would appropriate money to this fund.
Yes.
So it starts off with a zero balance, and he wants to take the private and nonprofit stuff out. Basically, that's it.
That's
right?
That's my understanding.
And when the governor was on, he mentioned also he didn't like the diversion because it's coming from the general fund. But then again, any money that you guys decide at the legislature to allocate to that program also comes from the general fund.
That's right. Yeah, it all comes from the same place.
So it's mono and mono, one way or the other, isn't it?
That's right. That's right.
So where is that bill now?
Sometimes when you do a diversion, it just keeps things from getting caught up in the political process. And there are things that, for instance, that's how we fund city governments. So, if we didn't have a diversion for city governments out of the sales tax, we'd be fighting every year on which city was getting what amount of money and things of that nature. So that's not a good place to be in certain situations. And so in some situations, diversions are a good thing.
One of the guys who is legendary as far as the GOP in the state and a Mississippian who cares about this is Clark Reed has offered a letter. Have you read the letter?
I have not seen the letter.
Mississippi is a poor state and is blessed with a wealth of natural resources. Billions of private and federal dollars exist to fund the improvements of them, especially private conversation. Mississippi struggles in raising the necessary matching funds. The state is losing an estimated $40 to $50 million a year due to the lack of non-federal matching funds. Hence, if passed and includes private conservation, the trust fund will be allowed in our state to significantly multiply our investment with other financial resources. If we use Lieutenant Governor Hoseman's speech as a guide to shape the legislation as it continues to move through the process and constantly remind ourselves of the large amount of funds at stake, I am confident we will end up in a good place. My fellow Republicans and Democrats, add back private conservation, fund HB 1231, and make this legacy a legislation a reality. Clark Reed, former state chairman from 1966 to 1976.
Well, it's a good letter, and I believe he's spot on.
I just read part of that. It is posted several places, and I think we've got it posted too. So
good.
So, again, where is the bill now?
So the Senate made their changes, sent it back to the House. I believe that bill is headed toward conference, and so you will see those issues that you just talked about, the whether to have a diversion or not, and whether to have a independent board or not, and also whether to include private conservation or not will be the issues that will be discussed in conference. And I'm hopeful. I'll tell you this, I've never seen a bill. I got to give credit to Senator Whaley, because the first time in my career I've ever seen a bill that's triple referred actually come out of three committees. Yeah. So he did a whale of a job getting that thing out of the committees.
We've seen several first times that haven't happened in a long time with Mr. Bomgar's thing, and with this one, it's been
interesting.
Several abnormalities happening in this legislative session. The other big thing, well, there are two more. The Medicaid. Anything happened yesterday as far as that's concerned?
Well, the House passed its version of the Medicaid tech bill, and my understanding is the Senate passed its version, and obviously that bill is headed to conference.
I got you. And finally, the income tax.
That's the big one. That's there. We got some things we're working on, Paul, but that's the one that could really change the trajectory of this state.
Yeah.
And so we are continuing to meet with senators daily and the Lieutenant Governor's office, and working our tails off to answer any questions that they have, and very, very hopeful that they will get on board with us and help us make that much-needed change to eliminate the individual income tax in the state.
Final segment in a moment or two will give you a chance for final thoughts.
Thank you.